It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. And you know, we're about to do something very important here. It's a culmination of 10 months of work, our final post-draft.
Feels like longer than that.
Yeah. Maybe it is a little bit longer than that now, actually. I think I've been saying 10 months for like 3 months at this point on the pod. So it's probably more like almost a year. But
yeah,
we're about to do that whole thing, like our thesis for 2025. But I cannot start this podcast without mentioning the ordeal we just went through because for 95% of the population, Skype getting shuttered in the beginning of May meant absolutely nothing. They just carried on with their lives. And for us, it was 3 years of recording podcasts on Skype. Yeah. And then we were scrambling to figure out how to fill Skype's shoes. And so now here we are. It's going to sound like a normal podcast to you, but I'm already a little winded.
Yeah, we're sitting here and we're texting back and forth. We're like, "Hey, did I lose you? What happened? Is your camera frozen? Can we record on here? What is it? Am I going to be able to? How big is this file going to end up being? Am I going to be able to upload this?" So that was absolutely a war of attrition. But we're here. You're listening to. Hopefully, you're seeing us on YouTube too. But if not, we'll figure out a way to make things work.
Yeah. If you're audio only, none of this matters to you because the audio only, nothing's changing. But for the YouTube folks, hopefully if something is on your screen right now, hopefully it looks okay. But we're going to figure that out as time goes on. It's okay because no matter what we look like or what software we're using today, the point is that we are here to finally break down this class in its final form. There are players that they are on NFL teams. We've talked about them at length for months and months. We finally know where they're playing NFL football. We talked a little bit about it last week, more of a reaction sort of episode to just kind of collect our thoughts, put them out there. But this is where it all gets extremely real, because we will be going through our top 48 final rankings for the 2025 Dynasty rookie class.
Yeah, we are finally, like you said, going to do the thing of what we've been building towards, what we've been working towards, all this scouting and everything. I mean, you and I have been a part of I've been a part of rookie drafts already. We're going through a startup draft in one of our new leagues. So you get to kind of put your feet to the fire of like, do I actually feel this way? Do I actually mean all of this when it's my team at stake and it's not just like these kind of nebulous rankings? So that kind of gives you, kind of grounds you a little bit in what you really feel versus, I scouted these guys in a vacuum, whatever. No, these guys are on teams and they need to contribute for your dynasty team. How are you going to feel with this guy on your roster, actually? And I think that's a little bit of a centering idea rather than just being like, oh, yeah, I got this guy here. And you actually get to, put your money where your mouth is a little bit.
Yeah, the board becomes very dynamic post-draft. And in years past, I will say this is year 3 now for us here. I would say in years past, I've stuck pretty close to my pre-draft analysis for players. I've tried to use that as a North Star to not get super overreactionary based off of a landing spot or things of that nature. I will say that this year, I did lean into it just a little bit more because of exactly what you said. When you're sitting there on the clock and you're going to make a pick, like there's more than just, how much do I believe in this player? There's perceived value, there's upside, there's floor, there's all of these different things that are going to go into where your league mates are thinking about taking players, and B, how willing you are to, save a roster spot for a specific player for potentially years and years. So a lot of that went into play here for me. I think my final rankings here are going to look, somewhat significantly different than where I was pre-draft, but I'm leaning into it.
Yeah, the draft we've kind of always said is like a lot of tiebreakers. You sit here and you say like, well, this player versus this player, who would I rather have? And when you get to like when it's this close and you're in like late in your rookie drafts, the landing spots are so crucial, and the draft capital is so crucial, and that's kind of what we'll be going over, because we've been talking about these guys, like I said before, in a vacuum for the most part. We did our like biggest change post draft last week. Go check that out if you want to hear who we thought like changed the most. But some of these guys, you might have them a lot higher, a lot lower, but we'll tell you why their draft capital matters so much, what team they landed on matters so much here, mostly later in the draft.
And on that note, but we're going to kick things off here real soon. On that note, if there is a ranking where it hits your eardrums and your blood pressure instantaneously spikes, and you're like, what the hell is this guy saying? Please let us know. We want to know. We want to know, if what you like, but I know that it's a lot easier to comment what you don't like online. That's the nature of the game. So we want that too. We want the conversation to be, open in both directions. So if you are on YouTube, put it down in the comments. It's as easy as that. If you're podcast only, I believe you can leave comments on Spotify now. I'm still not entirely sure how that works, but if you can't figure that out, just go to hit us up on Twitter, camp_dynasty, and just blow us up there. Let us know. We want to hear it. We're we got thick skin around here. So
my landline is 920-494-9158. You can give that a call. I'll let you go to voicemail.
Ring it off the hook. All right. So with all of that said, and with the foundation laid, let's jump into things here. We have 48 players on either side to talk about here. We will be going in batches of 6 until we get to pick 24. And then I think we can open it up a little bit for some extra discussion on our top 24 players. But in the meantime, starting at pick 48, we're doing 48 to 42. Is that how numbers work? 2, 4, 6.
We do to 43.
43. Thank you. Yes. So would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll do it. So 48, I got Malachi Starks, safety on the Ravens, or an IDP program. Start off hot. Taj Brooks at 47 on the Bengals. Tyler Shook, 46 to the Saints. Trevor Etienne, 45, Panthers. Savion Williams, Packers, 44. And then 43, Shedeur Sanders to the Browns. Big picture, wanted to get Starks in there because he's a really good player. Whether or not he's going to be super fantasy relevant, I'm not sure. But with this Ravens defense where it's very multiple and these guys kind of roll around, and then the big play threat of like getting interceptions, pass deflections, kind of Devon Witherspoon-esque, how you could have started him his entire rookie year. His role changed a lot last year, but like Starks could be that kind of playmaker where he has the big plays. Maybe he doesn't have the consistency. Taj Brooks as kind of a throw-in running back. Obviously Chase Brown, Zach Moss in Cincinnati right now, but Taj Brooks Zach Moss had like the neck injury, and so it might just be Chase Brown as a real threat, and he could just work in with Brown because he's a smaller runner. But there's a chance it's like a handcuff kind of player. Shook, I put on here because I didn't put a quarterback. Like, I think I didn't have Bo Nix on my top 48 last year. And because I totally hated him, and I was like, get him off my list. And then he was like the QB like 10 or something like that. So Tyler Shough makes the list because he's probably going to play games at some point for the Saints. And I don't want to be the guy that was like, I'm completely out on Tyler Shough. He's not going to be on my list. So he made it on here. Etienne it could be higher. Has a chance to like actually carve out a role on the Panthers. But a high upside, high athleticism runner that has a path to potential production. And then Savion Williams is more of a long-term play, I'd say, for the Packers. I think this year it'll be more of a gadgety return special teams guy. And then maybe as this roster kind of turns over and people start getting paid, because this is the youngest roster in the league, this wide receiver room like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are probably, their days might be numbered on this team. So Savion Williams might work his way into a real role next year, but this year it'll probably not look that great. And then Shedeur, I still like the talent of Shedeur. If you want to hear the full Shedeur conversation, you can go back last week. There's timestamps on that. We had a long, I think, like 20-minute back and forth about how we felt about Shedeur. That's how it felt. But yeah, got him at 43. I like the talent. I think he absolutely has an opportunity to take the job in Cleveland because they got a bunch of just random guys there. So that's my bottom 6.
Yeah, the bottom 6 is definitely the point, I think, when you're stacking a 48, where it's like, I want to just get a few of the guys in there that I want to just, tack on to the end of the draft. In that sense, I have, some different names on mine and names on yours that I left out. Like, I do not have Savion. I don't have Taj Brooks. Shedeur is just outside of my 48. And then I have a couple names higher. ETN a little bit higher, and then Starks. We'll talk about Starks a little bit later. I have him a little bit higher than that. But so my 48 to 43 is 48 Jalen Milroe. He is my mystery relevant. Like if there's one player I want to tack on, it's going to be Milroe. 47 Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher D line from the on the Bengals. And then I got a couple of running back flyers here that I have at the end of the 4th round in Jaden Blue, Cowboys running back from Texas, 46. 45, Kyle Monangai. Did we ever solve that mystery? I feel like I got it right, and then I psyched myself out and started saying it the other way.
I think we just say it however it feels.
Monangai, I think, is what it is.
Yeah.
So Monangai was a 7th round pick, but I did put him in here because I think there's a real chance that he could get some touches, potentially even this season for the Bears. 44, Torrey Horton, wide receiver from Colorado State that went to the Seahawks. And 43 is Jalen Walker, the edge rusher / linebacker that, went to the Falcons. I'm not entirely sure what his role is going to look like, but it's interesting to me. So I wanted to make sure he was in this list.
Yeah, I think those are all solid. I have some of those names higher, like you said. I have some of those names that I left off. So as we go through, I left Shamar and Jalen Walker are just off. Milroe I have a little higher. Jaden Blue I have a little higher. And Monangai will be in my next group. So
okay,
that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about a couple of those running backs then in this next group, because I'm going to have some more in mind as well. So why don't you give your 42 to 37?
So I have Tesla here at 42. I have Monangai 41. I have Ollie Gordon at 40. DJ Giddens at 39. Jalen Royals 38. And then Jalen Milroe at 37. Tesla is definitely he's the RAS guy that got drafted. He's got better tape than you might think, and so could he carve out a role? I'm not sure, but he's definitely worth a flyer, 100%. Monangai, like you said, on the Bears, there's not a great running back room. This is one of the spots that we wanted to take running back high, and they didn't end up doing it, but they ended up taking Monangai, who we liked his tape. We mentioned him. I think he got a couple badges throughout the year. So definitely interesting landing spot for an interesting player. Ollie Gordon, another guy that is I don't know exactly where he's going to go, when he's going to go, but he ends up going to the Dolphins, which is a spot that could use like a bruising running back. Not that like Ollie Gordon is a tank runner, but like I think he could be, because like he's got the size, he's got the strength for it. I think he could transfer into more of a short yardage guy rather than, you know, being a bell cow workhorse, because that's just not what he's going to be with the Dolphins. DJ Giddens, a little bit of a handcuff for Jonathan Taylor here, and Taylor has had, you know, some pretty significant injury history in his couple of years in the league. Some ankle injuries that were pretty bad last year. So I'd say that even like standalone, he could have some value as a pass catcher. I think that it's very much because like JT has had his struggles in the pass game. He's improved as he's gotten deeper in the league, but easing some of the touches on a player like JT who has a little bit of injury history is probably in the Colts' best interest, and having a player like this would definitely. And then Jalen Royals on the Chiefs, I really like the player. I have for a long time. And so I wanted to get him in here. I think he could fit in this Chiefs scheme where they are missing Rashee Rice. He's working his way back from that pretty gnarly knee injury. So, yeah, I got Jalen Royals here, and I'm not sure how much of an impact he's going to have year one, but if he makes any sort of connection with Mahomes, that could end up being a real thing.
Yeah, we definitely have some overlap in this group. I'll just rattle mine off here, and then we can talk about some of these players a little bit more. 42, I have Trevor Etienne. 41 is where I have Isaac Tesla. 40, I have Pat Bryant, wide receiver from Illinois on the Broncos. 39, Dylan Sampson, a player that I'm assuming you're going to have higher on your list. And then 38, I have DJ Giddens here as well. And 37, I have Carson Schwessinger on the Browns from UCLA, the linebacker. So real quick, some of these running backs, I think Monangai is a player like we just talked about a little bit, like low ceiling runner. He's not offering you any pass catching upside. He's not the fastest player. He's not really all that dynamic, but he's got good vision. He's a strong runner. He's kind of a brick shithouse. He's a great pass protector. He's the kind of player that's going to see the field for them, especially when you consider that DeAndre Swift is the other back, and a lot of Monangai's strengths are actually DeAndre Swift's weaknesses. So I think there's, you know, complementary nature to those players' games where even though Monangai is a 7th round pick, I mentioned this last week or maybe a couple weeks ago, in a draft class like this one, I'm a little bit less concerned about a running back going deeper on day 3 because of just how deep the class was in general. I don't think Monangai is necessarily like a 7th round talent as a running back. He's certainly a day 3 runner. I think I had him graded as a 5th rounder, but he gets pushed down the board a little bit because of the nature of his game in this sort of a class, and and then the Bears scoop him up. So I think there's a legitimate chance that he gets touches this season. Trevor Etienne, same thing. I mean, and I've said many times, I feel like I'm going to be a little bit higher on this player than a lot of people. I completely understand the inconsistencies that he's had and the ball security stuff, and never really putting it all together for a complete season in college, despite the flashes that you see. But man, Carolina is a decent spot to talk yourself into maybe he gets on the field a little bit. Jonathan Brooks is still obviously going to be working back from the injury. In the meantime, it's Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle. Maybe Etienne gets some passing work there in that backfield. So I have him here in the 4th round. And then Giddens as well. Obviously, everybody knows, if you've listened to Camp Dynasty, I'm pretty high on DJ Giddens. I talked myself way out of this one when he went later in the draft and then went to the Colts. But then I was kind of talking myself back into it a little bit. And man, like, JT's missed some time.
Yeah.
And this could be the direct benefactor to if a JT injury were to happen this year. We might get some legitimate run from DJ Giddens in a handcuff, operating as a handcuff for fantasy purposes to start the year, but a player that could seize hold of a role if it was presented to him. So I'm taking that flyer in the 4th round 10 times out of 10. Tesla, I think that was the other one that we had in the same group. And I agree with you. I think, he's certainly a project and certainly a player that it's like you look at Detroit's wide receiver room and you think, man, okay, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, but they took him in the 3rd round. They obviously believe in his talent. If he can develop in Detroit, I think he can develop into a player that operates as their number 3 wide receiver behind Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And we'll see what happens with Jameson Williams over the course of the next year or two to see, if he can finally completely seize hold of it, or maybe they opt to move on from him when that time comes. So I like Tesla as a late flyer as well.
Milroe, I didn't touch on. I kind of ended with Jalen Royals. 37 was my Jalen Milroe spot. Man, just somebody that I still believe in, whether it's the right thing to do or not. If you're sitting here and you're like, man, that's kind of low. This is not super flex. I know most people are playing super flex. We do one quarterback here at Camp Dynasty, and I know probably a lot of you already know that, but anybody that's new that's coming in, that's why we're sitting here. But I'm in the camp that I think Sam Darnold's not that good. I think he benefited from having Justin Jefferson and a really good coaching staff in Minnesota. Jordan Addison, the list goes on. And so I think you're going to see, back to the real me. And maybe Jalen Milroe ends up getting an opportunity here. And so I think you don't take a guy like this unless maybe they work him in some packages, just like as a runner potentially too. And then kind of how they were using Trey Lance early in the 49ers career. And then, maybe that ends up bearing fruit down the line. But I still am interested in the Jalen Milroe arc.
Yeah. I'm with you. I included him not quite as high, but included him there at 48 because he's a perfect taxi squad player. I want to make sure Jalen Milroe is on my team as long as I don't have to spend extreme, ridiculous capital. If I'm spending a late 4th round pick on him, sure, stick him on the taxi squad for the next couple of years. Maybe it's not even the next couple of years, depending on what happens with Sam Darnold, but I think just a perfect, really high upside, high, reward, low risk at this point of the draft. So he's an easy pick for me in this weird little quarterback tier that we're navigating. I don't have Shuck. I'm going to be the guy that didn't have Shuck.
You'll probably be vindicated.
Yeah, but we'll talk about another quarterback pretty soon in this next group.
All right, so my next 6, I have Jaden Blue at 36, Jack Bech at 35, Terrence Ferguson at 34, Demetrius Knight at 33, Dylan Sampson at 32, and then Jackson Dart at 31. So, what were you going to say? Sorry.
Do you want me to rattle mine and then we can just kind of take a look at it? Because we have some similar names here again. I have Dart at 36.
Okay.
So I'm at the bottom of this group. You're at the top. This next one, you're not going to want to hear this, but it's Devin Neal at 35.
I get it.
Terrence Ferguson, 34. Jalen Royals, I have a little bit higher here at 33. And 32, Malachi Starks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm stopping at 31. 31 is Donovan Ezaraku.
Okay. So Jaden Blue, you had a little lower. I just think this Cowboy room is so wide open that I'll just take a dice roll on a guy in that room, Jaden Blue, who has some talent. Jack Bech, I'm probably lower than people will want to be just because he got taken both like in the draft to the Raiders, and then also like as high as he did with his draft capital. I didn't love the tape, so that brings me down a little further. But I understand if you have him higher, like he's a fun player to watch, and he's gonna work his ass off, and that's gonna earn you brownie points, especially with Pete Carroll. Ferguson with the Rams. Stafford likes throwing to his tight ends, and like there's definitely an opportunity where he could be a reasonable volume tight end if he can like be on the field. So this is just a late third bet that this guy's going to see the field a decent amount. Demetrius Knight on the Bengals. This one is probably wait a year with this guy, throw him on a taxi, because I'm pretty sure they still have Tremaine Pratt and Logan Wilson on this team. But you get through the year, and then he can sub in and be like an every down kind of linebacker. They took him pretty high in the draft. And then Dylan Sampson, a guy on the Browns, him and Judkins, I would imagine are going to end up being, him, Jerome Ford and Judkins are going to rotate through this year. Maybe you move on from Ford if you see good things out of Sampson and Judkins, and then you kind of have a little bit of a 1-2 punch with those guys. Dylan Sampson's a lot of fun. So, like, just kind of want to get him in here. I know he was a later pick, but he's just an exciting runner. And then Jackson Dart, who could end up starting for the Giants down the road, because they seemed like they were going in for him. The whole Shador thing aside, like it seems like they like Dart enough to put some real capital into him. So there we go.
I mean, Jackson Dart was a player that I just kept moving up, like where I started when I stacked the 48 versus where I ended. I was getting flashbacks of Bo Nix, and I just couldn't do it again, as much as I don't really believe in his talent or believe he is the guy for the Giants. They took him, and he's going to get an opportunity. I mean, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are not going to stand in the way of a 26th overall or whatever he was pick in the long run. We will get some looks at him. So he is my last pick of the third round in that case, which is probably still maybe a little bit too low, but I'm glad to see that you're not all that much higher.
Yeah.
Because I felt a little bad about it.
I'm not going to go out on a limb for Jackson Dart.
No.
I don't love the player. I don't hate him, but
the other thing I will just throw in here quick, because I know we're kind of getting into some IDPs here pretty heavily. Next week, we will cover our final IDP rankings in great detail. So, because we haven't really, we've talked about IDPs, of course, all year, but it's not really until the draft comes where we can have some like serious conversations about the role, what scheme they're playing in, and like really project what they could look like at the NFL level, aside from like the top tier guys. So we're going to dive into that more next week. We'll have, deeper discussions about players like Demetrius Knight, and all of these other linebackers, D-line and DBs that we're talking about. We'll be doing top 20s next week. So if we gloss over some of the IDPs today, it's just because we're going to talk way more in depth about them next week. Terrence Ferguson, we have here. I agree. I think we were both fans of his game. He was kind of the odd man out with this like top tight end group with the top tier, and then you had the second tier. He was kind of tagging along, like holding on to the back of that second tier for me. And then with the draft capital that he got and the spot that he got, it's really easy to talk yourself into taking him here in the third round, I think. So, and then we'll save the Devin Neal conversation.
Okay.
So we'll just
for a while.
We'll just press pause. All right. So 32 25. Oh my God.
So
that's
it.
And then we're going to hit the second round.
Rest of the third round. So 30, I have Nick Emanwari. He's with the Seahawks. 29, I have Elijah Arroyo. Also, his teammate. I have Kyle Williams, Patriots. Here's where I have Schlesinger on the Browns.
Yep.
I have Bachel Tootin at 26. And then I have Mike Green at 25.
Okay, so we're overlapping here pretty significantly with some of these. I have James Pierce at number 30, Nick Emanwari at 29. I have Harold Fannin at 28, Mike Green at 27, Elic Ayomanor at 26, and Bachel Tootin at 25. The safeties are interesting to me. We both have Emanwari in this range. Malachi Starks you had later in the 4th, and I totally understand why. And I feel like this is kind of one of those things where like I talked myself out of Brian Branch and players like that. And like, obviously this is a different player. That's not a comp or anything, but thinking about players that are projected to be in less fantasy friendly roles that are just excellent DBs, it just makes me want to roll the dice on him. Like if I'm going to spend a draft pick on a DB, I want it to be a player like Malachi Starks. And if he's just playing free safety and he's not really getting tackles and he's not really making enough plays to be relevant, then so be it. But I want to roll the dice on players like that in the 3rd round. And then Emanwari is obviously the easier sell, where he's a little bit riskier in the sense that you're not entirely sure if his game is going to translate as well as Starks. But man, if it does, then you're going to get an absolute superstar as a DB with Emanwari. We have not heard Harold Fannin from you yet, have we?
No. Yet.
So Harold Fannin will be in the top 24. We'll talk about him. Bachel Tootin.
Yep.
He was in the top of this range for you?
Yeah, he was at 26 for me, so pretty close to where you have him.
So that's an interesting one to just take a beat on, because I think this is another player that has a lot of fans in the process, and he goes to the Jaguars, and there's a lot of bad vibes with the Jaguars backfield after last season. So, I mean, Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby trading, the number 1 spot back and forth, but nobody's really winning last season between those two. Now Liam Cohen comes in. You expect the offense to look rejuvenated. You expect the run game to look rejuvenated. Think back to last season with a player like Bucky Irving, what Cohen was able to do in Tampa Bay with a player like that, and Rachaad White. So I think there's going to be, some dynamic, qualities to this backfield. I think different guys are going to take the role take the lead at different points. I think Tootin can be one of those guys, and that's why I think he's getting this early 3rd round spot from both of us, even though he's going to the spot where Travis Etienne, I guess you can still say, is the favorite to lead the backfield. But after we saw what we saw from him last season, I'm not sure he has as firm of a hold on that as we thought he did. Yeah,
that's basically where I'm at too. Is like, if you have 2 RB1s, you have no RB1s, and that's kind of where the Jags are right now. And then you get the new guard in the front office and head coach with the Jags, and they go out and take a running back, and they're not attached to Tank Bigsby or Travis Etienne. So whether that's this year or they just choose not to extend Etienne after this year and kind of let him walk, see what he can do on the free agent market, and then it's just Bachel Tootin and Tank Bigsby, and like, it's kind of a horse apiece. So that's why I have him up here. And then for the other guys, like you said, Emanwari, really interesting in the Seahawks defense, this Mike McDonald defense. I'm really interested to see how he gets deployed. Arroyo should be also pretty interesting. It's probably going to be a more run-centric offense with Sam Darnold at the helm. I can't expect that you're going to be wanting to throw like 25, 30 times a game. But I think he'll be a prominent target given that the wide receiver room has gotten worse from last year to this year. Kupp did come in, and it's not terrible, but like, it's nice to have a big body that can like get beat up over the middle a little bit. A young guy that can take a couple more hits, that is going to be a little more willing to be a middle of the field target. Kyle Williams just like straight up has a chance to demand a bunch of targets in New England because that wide receiver room, again, is weird. Like Stephon Diggs comes in, yes, but other than that, it was like Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte and, a plethora of just random guys that were catching passes from Drake May. So if you can, work some chemistry out, it could look pretty good for Kyle Williams pretty early. Schlesinger, you had him a little lower. I get it. Goes to the Browns, which they don't have like a certified real linebacker. Like they have some guys that you can plug and play. If you're an IDP guy, you've probably started more than one Browns guy. You've seen more than one Browns guy go through. JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, is the kind of the prize of that linebacker room in dynasty leagues. He's fine. I think Schlesinger can become an every down linebacker because of his coverage ability, and he's a pretty solid tackler too. And then Mike Green at 25. I think we both have sung Mike Green's praises through the year, and goes to a really good spot that I'm very interested in, that really needed pass rush. So lands there and should be productive right away, I think.
Yeah, I would have Green higher if not for the reason he fell in the NFL draft
Right.
is a real concern. Like, will he be suspended? Is this going to be something that's lingering with him? Like, he would have been in my top 24 if that wasn't the case. But, all right, let's jump in because a few of the names that we just touched on, we're going to touch on a little bit more, and vice versa. Names down my list, we're going to touch on as well. So let's get into a little bit more detail on the top 24. Not that we haven't covered these guys well enough, but this is the final say. We have NFL teams attached to them. We'll get to break down what we're expecting from all of these guys. So with that said, your number 24 player.
Cam Ward, staying around at 24. I think some people were upset that he was this low. Again, this is one quarterback. This is a player that I think has a kind of a low ceiling. I've put his ceiling at Matt Stafford. If you've listened before, that's where I'm at on him. He's a pocket passer that will need to have highly inflated passing stats to be one of those like top tier quarterbacks. Not saying that's not possible if this Titans team, but as currently constructed, it's not going to be that this year. I can tell you that. But over the years, it could absolutely develop into that. As I see more of the like Cam Ward videos and like Cam Ward edits on TikTok, I kind of want to move them up a little more. But I'm trying to stay away from that because I'm like, dang, that's kind of hard. But I'm trying to let the pure scouting do the talk for me. But yeah, I think Cam Ward's a good player that could average you a cool like 16 a game at quarterback, which is fine. But like, I'm cool with getting that at the end of the second round.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me. I do have Cam Ward at 22, so a little bit higher. I had him a little bit higher than that. I had him a little bit lower than that. Right. I ultimately settled on 22 because I think the range of outcomes is just too wide to like, even though he is the first overall pick, and I get that, and people are going to want to take him in the mid to high second round, even in one quarterback. For me, like end of round 2 is really as high as I'm willing to go, just because there's such a not a significant chance, but there's enough of a chance that he just doesn't pick the issues that plagued him throughout his college career. And even this last season, the one that made him the number 1 overall pick, even on film from this last year, those issues still persist. So there is a learning curve with him. He's not the sort of player, and I feel like this is getting a little bit lost. People got wrapped up in it. They got excited. Titans got their new quarterback. He's going first overall. I feel like through the process, everybody sort of just forgot, hey, wait a minute, Cam Ward, like week 1, that could be a little messy. Like it could be a little rough for him starting out. So I believe in him. I believe in the talent. I think he could represent great value if you can get him at the end of the second round. but it's going to be very dependent on obviously his path and how he develops in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'll say this, like, if you need a quarterback and you like Cam Ward, take him higher. Like, I'm not trying to like write the Bible for you and like be a prophet on like this is what is true. Everything is fluid, and like team needs matter, and your league mates' value matters probably more than anything. Where like if you have a guy that's like, I want to take Cam Ward 110, it's like, okay, that's too high for me. But like if you need a quarterback in this draft, like trade up to 109 and take him. Like I wouldn't do it, but if you need to and you love Cam Ward, go ahead. Like that's the world we live in.
Goes without saying that you can take players wherever you want to take them. This is just where we rank them.
Cheers. Like I just want to put that out there because I know someone's going to be like, why do you have Cam Ward so low? Like, because that's how I feel about the player. It's okay.
But please do say that. I want to see it in the YouTube comments. I want to see it on Twitter. I want to see it all over the place. These guys are way too low on Cam Ward. It's okay. You know what? If Cam Ward becomes an absolute superstar, we'll be right here on Redraft 2025, and we'll be talking about how wrong we were about Cam Ward because we're not afraid to own it. So
that's right. So who's your number 24?
24 for me is Elijah Arroyo. So we already talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about him already. I will echo everything you said. I'm not entirely certain on what the role looks like this year, just because I think he is a little bit more of a developmental tight end in the sense that he's flashed some really exciting things, but I'm not sure that he's ready to come in to this, the next level up of competition in the NFL and thrive. But at the same time, I think Seattle, it's kind of a wide open situation for him where if he is ready to hit the ground running a little bit, they can get him involved, certainly, because there's just not that many talented pass catchers there. You have Jackson Smith-Njigba, you have Cooper Kupp, who, we'll see what that looks like this year. But outside of those two, it looks pretty thin. So I think there's been a lot of conversation potentially about like Torrey Horton as a player they took in the 5th round. Like, oh man, maybe Torrey Horton's going to work in. I feel like people are forgetting that they took a pass catcher higher in the draft in Elijah Arroyo, who they're already talking about playing both tight end and wide receiver potentially for them. So he's a versatile piece. I think he's a little bit underrated right now. He's going much lower than we're talking about him on KTC right now. So I think he represents a little bit of a value.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Like, I think 29, like, I can see this range of being like 24 to 30 kind of idea where you need a tight end, you want a tight end. This is like a moonshot kind of tight end play where maybe the floor is a little bit low, like maybe the rocket crashes and burns, but maybe you end up on the moon and you got a guy that has insane athleticism that can take like a slant to the house from the tight end position. That's the kind of guy you're getting here.
Yeah, you got to take swings sometimes.
Right.
You got to stare that floor right in the face and just say, I don't care. I'm looking at the ceiling.
That's right.
All right. So
you can't see the floor if you're looking at the ceiling, right?
Yeah. You just got to do like a quick move, like a number 23 for you.
Mason Taylor.
Look at that name.
Here we go. So Mason Taylor is a Jet, and that is a good thing, I think. No, it's definitely a good thing. We're talking about the Jets potentially going tight end in the 1st round with their high pick. They ended up taking him a little later than that, but not much later. So this is going to be their starting tight end. They don't have really another one on the roster, which is why we wanted them to go after Mason Taylor. They wanted them to go after a tight end in general. And we both kind of like Mason Taylor out of LSU. And he ended up going higher than I thought he was going to, but I'm okay with it. He's a really good receiver. He does a lot of good things before the catch, and then he's pretty solid after the catch. Could be a better blocker, that's for sure. But with the the void at receiving, like who's going to be catching passes for the Jets outside of Garrett Wilson, he can be a part of filling that void for this team. So new look Jets 7.0 since 2014. Mason Taylor is going to be a part of it.
Man. Yeah, let's hope he's a part of the era for the Jets that they makes them an actually good team. But while they might be,
hold your breath.
Yeah, they might be just a few years away from that potentially. But I would say Mason Taylor is probably a few years away from being a legitimate, NFL tight end as well. This is a player that is 20 years old. He turns 21 this month, actually, I think very soon. So he is a young tight end. He has certainly the experience in the SEC that we've talked a lot about, leading tight end receiver in LSU history. But at the same time, I think, like you said, he does need to get stronger as a blocker, needs to get better as a blocker. There is some development in his routes, certainly, that you can look to as well. Really good flashes, really good foundation, like him a lot. But this is also not a player that I would expect to walk in, even despite the desperate need that the Jets have at tight end and pass catcher in general. I would be surprised if he walked in and commanded, targets and put up like a solid, 600 yard sort of 500 yard sort of season. Is 500 yards a lot for a rookie tight end? That sounds like a lot.
I was going to say, I think if somebody saw 500 yards from a tight end, they'd say he stinks. But I think
that's true. Kyle Pitts,
I think that's
1,000, but
yeah, I think that's pretty solid projection for Mason Taylor. It seems like that might be on the high side.
I'd take like a 450 yard season. You're 21 years old. If you can put up 400 plus yards this year, that's a win in my books.
Justin Fields.
Yeah. I mean, God, if he put up 400 yards, it might be tied.
It's that's half of Justin Fields' total yards on the season.
Yeah. All right. Couple of tight ends for me. I have Mason Taylor 23 as well, and I have Cam Ward at 22. So you're back up at 22.
So I have Elic Ayomanor here, who I think you had just at the top of your third round.
26.
Right. So Ayomanor, I think, is just a really interesting player. Went to the Titans, and I read something that said that he's going to be starting at X for them. And I was like, all right, cool. Things are dire in Tennessee right now, if you're declaring that on May 3rd. But he is a player that has grown on me through the draft process. I didn't have him much lower than this before the draft spot because but he moved up, I think, 2 spots for me, maybe 1 spot for me, just because there's so many targets available in this Titans offense, and they have an actual quarterback there now. That's not Will Levis or Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill or Marcus Mariota. Hopefully Cam Ward is the one to break this trend of weird quarterback situations. And Ayomanor can be a byproduct of that.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the spot. I think any wide receiver that they took in the top 3 rounds would be, instantaneously getting a little bit of a bump, just in the sense that, like you said, Cam Ward there, sexy quarterback position again, and they don't really have anybody right now. So I think I've always been sort of in this range with Ayomanor just on a talent basis, but he sticks right here at the turn of the round for me because I think there's certainly opportunity there for him as well.
Yep.
All right. Number 21 for me is Jack Bech.
Okay.
And you had him at
35.
So this is a pretty significant difference between us. And I understand why, you'd get to that place, but I like Bech from a talent perspective. I don't love Bech from a talent perspective, from a film perspective, I should say. But I like him enough that the draft spot both the capital and the landing spot are very interesting to me, and specifically because I feel like he is the sort of wide receiver that can come in and just kind of raise some hell for them. Like, I feel like this is going to be a new age Raiders team, new leadership on top, Pete Carroll coming in. We're going to run the football. We have the king in the backfield, leading the charge, and we're going to have Jack Bech on the outside blocking his ass off. And then, carrying 3 secondary defenders when he catches a slant route. It's like, this is a player that I think can be a culture builder. He can represent a lot of the things that they want to do in this new era. And that's why I think they took him where they did. And I believe in his talent enough that I'm willing to roll the dice and say he can develop into their, number 2 option consistently moving forward. And right now the room's so bare that maybe it looks even better than that this year.
Yeah, it's totally fair. I think you're definitely going to see some inflated numbers for Jack Bech this year just because there's so many targets to go around. I guess where I'm at with Bech is like he's gotten pretty like high in the draft where I'm just like, I don't really want him at this price. I'll let somebody else take him. And like, if he's good there, so be it, but not for me.
So you're 21 then.
Here we go. RJ Harvey.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. So RJ Harvey was not in my top 24 before. So he has moved his way into the top 24, and people are going to be upset about this because they got a hard on for RJ Harvey because he got drafted high to a team that needed a running back. I get it. And that's kind of how this goes is the touches that are available have to go to somebody, and you assume that it's going to be RJ Harvey, and it's a good assumption. I'm not going to say like it's bad process to have him higher than this, but again, it's like if somebody's going to take him the 108, like I'm good on that price. I'll just like I'll trade back if somebody really wants RJ Harvey, but I don't hate this player. I don't really dislike this player. I just at cost, I am not like excited about RJ Harvey in the first round. Mid-second, I'm cool with it. But it's just like a guy that didn't wow me on tape and is probably going to be pretty solid for the Broncos. But another guy that I'm okay with somebody else taking the chance on him succeeding on somebody else's team.
Yeah, this is obviously the number 1, riser of this draft class. And we're talking about him here at 21 for you. He is a little bit higher for me, but he's not much higher. I have him at number 17. So that is, if we look at KTC, which I referenced last week and said, I don't think it's done climbing. It's already continued to climb. He's currently sitting at rookie number 11 on KTC right now in non-superflex. So I want to shout out a YouTube commenter that we had from last week, Mapex MVP. Really great argument for why RJ Harvey should be, theoretically climbing in these drafts. Lines up with the type of back that Sean Payton likes. The opportunity is certainly there. Kind of called me out, and I felt it for saying Cam Skattebo was or Harvey was smaller and older, but then like saying Cam Skattebo is fine, but he's also smaller and older. So like that was a very sound argument, and I want to acknowledge it because it's very legitimate, and it's the reason why he is the number 11 rookie on KTC and why he will be, I would guess, a first round pick in your Dynasty rookie league. Like I will just say, like in a 85% of the time he's going to be going first round. So that's the world we live in.
Yeah. That's the world that I've done 3 rookie drafts. and he's gone in the first round, or I've done 4 rookie drafts. He's gone in the first round in 3 of them. And then he went like top of the second round in the other one. So like that's just where we're at right now.
Right. And that's how it is. But what I will say is that you and I, we have thoughts about that, and this is how we're ranking the class.
Yep.
So if RJ Harvey comes out and is a stud and is everything that everybody wants him to be and says he's going to be, and he is the lead back in this Broncos backfield that was in a very appealing spot in the draft this year, if all of those things come true, then we will certainly talk about that this fall as it's happening, and we will, own up to that, and we will talk about how it happened and our process and why we were, where we are today. But as it sits today, I will tell you that I do have, I cannot say that I don't have reservations about this, because this is not something that has happened. It wouldn't be a shock. Let's put it that way. If RJ Harvey was underwhelming based off of his current ADP, we've seen this before. It happens a lot. I'm not saying RJ Harvey is not a good player. What I'm saying is I think he's being overdrafted. I think even if you think he has the talent to lead or take control of this Broncos backfield, what does that look like? Does that look like a role that is so, productive and so fantasy friendly that he is worth a first round pick in this sort of a draft class, where there are real, players that I think have a lot more talent than he does that are now getting pushed down the board? We raised the conversation last week about Kaleb Johnson being the one where it was like, if you can get Kaleb Johnson for RJ Harvey, like if it's like a RJ Harvey for Kaleb Johnson plus situation, yeah, do that.
I think you probably could right now.
And I think you can, because according to KTC, Harvey is the 11th player, and Kaleb Johnson's actually holding at number 7 right now.
Okay.
Which is a little bit interesting, because I've definitely seen drafts where Johnson is going later. So
Dynasty players not reactionary.
that's the weirdest thing I've seen all day.
Hot out the press.
But all of that is to say, he is my number 17 player. That is up from my 43rd player. Like, this is a significant board hike for me following this landing spot. I'm respecting it.
It's also significant. He made a significant jump for me too.
Yes.
He was at 39 before. He's at 21 now. Like, he moved up 18 spots. Like, it's not like I'm not putting him at 11. I'm sorry. Like, yeah. If someone wants to take him that high, they can go ahead, like I said before. But just like at cost, not for me. I was wanting the Broncos landing spot to be, one of the guys that I liked more on tape, because the landing spot is so juicy and doesn't have a ton of competition. But when it was a guy that I didn't love their tape, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to move him up just because the opportunity is there, but I'm still not enamored with this player. So that's how he ends up at 21 for me.
So that is how we will leave RJ Harvey for 2025. And this fall, when we gather around the campfire for All Grown Up, we will be having this conversation, I'm sure, one way or the other. So,
yep.
All right. Where are we?
We are at number 21 for you.
Number 20 for me. 21 was Jack Bech, and 21 for you was Harvey.
Yep.
So 20 for me is Jaylin Noel.
Okay. I'm at 17.
So Noel, obviously, we talked about this last week. He was one of the 12 picks that changed the draft because of the fact that he was not even the first wide receiver that the Texans took. He went after his teammate, Jayden Higgins, who they took in the second. Noel went in the third, which was also a little bit surprising for him. However, I'm kind of right where I was. He's a little bit lower than he was pre-draft. I had him at number 19 pre-draft, so one spot lower for me at this point. But like I said last week, this Texans wide receiver room needed bodies, plural. Like they needed help. So I think with Tank Dell being, let's hope he gets back on an NFL field at some point, but what does that even look like at that point? Being realistic about it. And then Christian Kirk being this sort of stopgap veteran option for right now. You have Nico Collins, and then you have room for these guys to fill in. So Higgins and Noel, I think, are going to both represent, upside. Maybe they cap each other, and obviously under a player like Nico Collins, their upside's already going to be a little bit capped, but man, I just believe in their talent so much.
Yeah, I totally I agree. I think Noel is a guy whose tape I loved a lot. We talked about both of these Iowa State guys a lot, but highlighted Noel plenty of times. Lands in a spot that we wanted wide receiver to go to. Obviously, they took wide receiver earlier, which is why I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. But all three of the guys that you would, hope are on the field most of the time with Nico Collins, Jaylin Noel, and Jayden Higgins all have completely different play styles and body types, which is exactly what you want in a receiver room. And Noel is so distinctively different than both Higgins and Nico Collins that he's likely not going to be filling the same role at any point. Nico Collins can obviously do a lot of different things and can do probably everything Jaylin Noel can do. But in most situations, Noel can be their guy that's taking the top off the defense. He can be a guy that's, running backside, long developing, comeback routes while Nico Collins runs the big dig and you come back to Jaylin Noel. That's just it's so now they have so much variety in their wide receiver room because of a guy like Noel, and he can bring a separation guy outside of, having to go to Nico Collins all the time.
Look, I'll end it by saying this. I would not be surprised. I don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jaylin Noel was the Iowa State receiver that took control of the opportunities available in Houston. I
feel that because Higgins has a similar play style, similar body type to Nico Collins. So if you're looking for a compliment to that player, it's probably not going to be the guy with the similar play style.
Number 19 for you.
Number 20 for me.
Number 20 for you
is Cam Skattebo.
Hey.
Here we are. So I put him right next to RJ Harvey, so nobody could be mad at me about it. But I really like the landing spot for this player. We talked about it last week a little bit, where he was a riser. He didn't go much later than we thought he was going to go. He, is a really fun player to watch. He's tough as nails, breaks a ton of tackles. I liked his film a little bit more. I didn't love him. It's well documented coming up to this, but I think he fits in really well with what the Giants running back room looks like, and that's Tyrone Tracy, and that's about it. And Tracy can be a very good dynamic back. Skattebo is going to be the one that's coming in short yardage, goal line. He's going to be vulturing touchdowns. He's going to be working on first and second down. He's going to be, they'll probably end up trusting him with pass blocking at some point. Tyrone Tracy is nice. We'll probably get most of the work this year, but I think Skattebo is going to be taking over late season, mid season, at very worst, next year. I think we're wheels up.
Yeah, I have Skattebo at 15. So he dropped from number 12 for me pre-draft to number 15, 2 spots ahead of RJ Harvey. I have one player sandwiched in between them that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, the argument that they are similar makes sense up until you turn on their tape. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm going to draw the line. I mean, I think Skattebo is an older player. Yes, he is a little bit undersized. There's some wear and tear already on the wheels here. However, I just think he is, from a talent basis, today, an upgrade over Tyrone Tracy. I understand that Tyrone Tracy had a good rookie season. I understand that Tyrone Tracy was a dynamic piece for them. He was the thing that people tried to sell themselves on with him, which is this running, receiving, dynamic offensive weapon. I still think Skattebo is just a better pure runner, and that's going to matter as soon as this season. So I do think it could be a little bit muddy. I think it won't be perfect. It's certainly not just going to be a, Skattebo's getting 25 touches a game sort of deal. But I think it's, at top of the second round, 15th overall, and especially where we're talking about him here at number 20. Like, if you can get him anywhere in that range, I think it's well worth the swing.
Also, like, one of the juiciest handcuffs in fantasy right now. Like, if Tracy goes down, I think Skattebo is getting a ton of carries on this offense, because it's going to be weird with their quarterback situation. We kind of touched on it with the Jackson Dart conversation. It's hopefully they'll be run first, because I think that would serve them well.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors targets and then run the ball. That's
100%.
That's the game plan. All right, so number 19 for me then is Kyle Williams, who you had
I had 28.
28. So I just love Williams. I love the talent. He's right here in this group for me. These three wide receivers I've had with Bech, Noel, and now Williams. I put Williams over Noel here because, I mean, I think this Patriots spot just locks it in that he can develop into a legitimate, like, number one, number two sort of option for them potentially. Number two, certainly. I don't know if he is ever their number one option, but man, he's going to be a deep threat for Drake May, who has the arm talent and the arm strength to uncork it. And
the desire.
Yeah, and I was going to say, he wants to push the ball down the field. So he's going to get the opportunity to do that with a player like Williams, who is, going to offer that field stretching ability while also offering, separation and being a friendly target for Drake May as well. I think this connection is really going to could blossom as soon as this year. Williams is a developed player. There's more, obviously room for him to grow, but this is the sort of player that I can definitely see, like, being comfortable early on in his rookie season.
Yeah, I think, like, Kyle Williams could be, I think his ceiling is like a good number two receiver. And he could be that this as early as this year. I just see it shaking out like Diggs is going to get the majority of these targets. Demario Douglas had like good rapport with Drake May, especially down the stretch. Kyle Williams works in as like a number two option with Douglas, with like some of these random receivers. And like, as the season goes on, I'm sure he'll be like establish himself more and more. But I just don't know exactly what the ceiling looks like. And I don't know if it's like this high where I'd want to take him this high.
Number 19 for you then.
I got Jihaad Campbell, linebacker for the Eagles. So this was an interesting landing spot because we knew he was, or we thought he was going to go in the first round, and we expected him to go in the first round. Kind of waiting to see who would take him because there's a lot of teams that needed linebacker. And then, of course, ends up on the Eagles. We were doing the mock draft. If you go back and listen, we're like, who's the best player that's available? Like, who's just a good player? And that's just what they do. It's what the Ravens do too. They ended up with, good players just all that fall. But Jihaad Campbell is going to be manning the linebacker room next to Zach Bond, kind of a similar player to Zach Bond, where they were, converted edges, hybrid linebacker, and then throw them off ball full time and see what exactly that looks like for a guy like this. And so I could absolutely see him being really good. I don't know, like, with this linebacker room, Nakobe Dean obviously got hurt late last year. Zach Bond is a all-pro linebacker. So I don't know how clear the path to like consistent production is for him, but I think like sooner rather than later, you don't take a guy in the first round if you don't plan on playing him. And like maybe Dean is out the door because like, he's got the knee injury. You bring a guy in the first round, you kind of talking with your assets.
It was a hell of a run for Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Yeah.
just when
last year when we were like, they don't have a single linebacker, and then Zach Bond ends up being like the GOAT.
Zach Bond, and then Dean was breaking out, and then Dean gets hurt, and then what do? They take Jihaad Campbell, who falls to them. The shoulder issue that caused him to fall on draft day is also preventing him from taking part in their rookie mini camp, which is happening right now. So we don't exactly, we haven't gotten any looks at him, but what I heard after the draft was that they were looking at him as a edge rusher first and a linebacker second. Now that's an interesting distinction because that is not what we were thinking about him. And it's even more interesting when you look at the Eagles defense because, that could manifest in some different ways if he's playing as a defensive end for them. So I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I do still have him here at number 18, one spot ahead of where you are with him, just because I think however they use him, he's just so athletic and so gifted that I have faith that he can develop if he is, playing as a pass rusher full time. I mean, sure, why not? He did it at Alabama. He wasn't necessarily like anything that was going to, blow your socks off, but he certainly flashed some talent, and he's a young enough player and an athletic enough player that I think he can develop if that's the way they choose to do it.
Yep.
All right. So Campbell is 18 for me.
Okay.
So 18 for you is
Harold Fannin.
Here
we go. So I'm still very much in on Fannin. I liked where he ended up on the Browns. I think it's, it's an interesting situation, obviously, because of how the quarterback room looks. And this is a team that's kind of in disarray and in transition right now. That it has been since I've been watching football, kind of. The Browns have been weird. So they still are. They don't have a guy to lead the offense. They don't have a lot of things, but they have Harold Fannin. And the one thing I like about this situation is, like, if they decide to do a full teardown, it's likely with Harold Fannin on this team and without David Njoku on this team going forward, because Njoku's older, going to need more money as he continues to produce like a top-tier tight end. But, if you're tearing it down to the studs and restarting with a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback, then you just move forward with Harold Fannin and you give him a bunch of targets because he's a freak. And, people have kind of soured on Fannin as time has gone on through this draft process. At one time, he was like the people's tight end one, and he's come down to this, and now it's like, I don't really want Harold Fannin. I still want him. I think I have, like, in all those rookie drafts that I was talking about, I think I've taken him in 3 of them because I'm like, all right, if he's going to be here in the 3rd round, like, absolutely I'm going to take him. So this is kind of the opposite end of that spectrum that I'm talking about with, like, RJ Harvey and whoever we were talking about before, where it's like, at cost, I'm out. At cost, I'm very much in on Fannin.
Yeah, I saw a tweet today that was like, it was the clip of Harold Fannin making the Texas A&M defenders miss down the sideline, and the caption was, Harold Fannin looks like he's running through mud. And I'm like, you picked this video to say that it looks like he's running through mud. He's making SEC defenders miss at 240 pounds in the open field. Like, what are we saying? Because he runs a little weird. Like, that's what you're thinking.
He has a weird gait. He does, and we've talked about that.
So I think this is one of those areas where when I mentioned the board being a little bit more dynamic for me, I just see Fannin, and maybe this is just based off of the conversation we had last week where you and I differed a little bit in terms of, I don't expect Fannin to show us really anything for the next like 1 to 2 years. Like, I don't know that he is a player that gets like touches this year. I don't think he is a player that gets involved for them much, if at all, this year. It might be some scheme touches just to get him involved, get his feet wet a little bit as a rookie, but that's about it. That's what I would expect. And for a player like that, I think that middle of the 3rd round is where I'd be comfortable taking him, because I know that if somebody were to snipe me on that, if somebody were to take him higher than that, and it's not you, it's not somebody that's like, I love Harold Fannin, I'm going to take him here. I feel like this is a player that I can get for cheaper after the season. So this is me playing a little bit of the long game with Fannin, where if I'm sitting in a rookie draft, I'm going to say, by middle of the 3rd round, it's like, all right, this is too much. I just need to take him here. But if not, if he's gone before that point, then that's where I'm like, all right, I'm going to play the waiting game. And then maybe next year I'll throw out a 4th and turn that, 26th pick into a future 4th. So that's kind of where my head was at with Fannin here.
Yeah, and I end up with him at 18 because I feel like this team is going to be, so weird and rebuilding that he will get opportunity early on, because like, why won't you develop your player on the field? And if that's not true, like it wasn't true with Malachi Corley, egg on my face,
Hey, this is the year.
Yeah, hey, I'm not giving up on Corley,
No.
I can tell you that. And I'm not going to be giving up on Fannin after year 1 if he doesn't perform well.
It's funny how developmental players require development sometimes. Yeah. It's we always seem to forget that once the feet hit the pavement on week 1 of the rookie season.
Yeah, the Western Kentucky receiver wasn't an all-pro year 1. Let's get rid of him. Same with the Bowling Green tight end.
Yep. All right, so we are at number 17, and for me that is RJ Harvey. So
and for me that's Jaylin Noel.
Okay, so then we're moving up to 16, and for me that is Tre Harris.
Okay, I'm at 15.
So Harris is the player that I sandwiched in between Skattebo and Harvey. I thought about having them together, but then I thought, man, nah, I'm taking Tre Harris over RJ Harvey, and I will eat it if I have to, because I just said this last week, been high on Harris throughout this entire process. And by the process, I mean since the summer. It feels like we have been, very much Harris believers, Harris fans. It's sort of ebbed and flowed. I think at one point he was sort of that quintessential, outside receiver, can't separate well. I'm way out. And then over the course of the season, it kind of became like, he's kind of a sneaky wide receiver that folks were starting to talk about again. He wouldn't have been one of those if he hadn't gotten hurt, because he was on his way to winning a Biletnikoff potentially based off of the numbers he was putting up in the first half of this season. But I think we ended in a place that makes me feel very comfortable about Tre Harris, which is that the Chargers were willing to spend high draft capital on him, a team that needed wide receiver help, and a player that fits really nicely into what they are building at wide receiver. And honestly, I'm starting to warm up to the idea of just, giving him that shot on the outside and letting him play the way that he played at Ole Miss. And maybe it doesn't work, and I am still a little bit skeptical that it will. But man, with Justin Herbert uncorking balls down the sideline to Tre Harris and him going up and grabbing them, that's just an image that I can't get out of my head right now. So with McConkey and Harris, I'm a believer in what the Chargers wide receiver room is. The direction that it's going, and I'm taking them here.
Similar to how we talked about Jaylin Noel, in a wide receiver room of different body types, different skills, different kind of niches to fill in an offense. I think building a wide receiver room, the Chargers did it the right way, because Ladd is obviously your number 1 guy. He's more of a, operate primarily out of the slot, can work outside every once in a while, but going to be an underneath guy, a rack guy. He's going to be, running in breakers, matched up against slot corners, linebackers, like trying to get the matchup advantage with Ladd. Tre Harris, he's gonna be your outside guy, just in most scenarios. Like you can shift things around and put him in the slot every once in a while, but it's probably gonna be like a 10% thing with how this offense is constructed now, because Quinshon Judkins also like good big slot kind of player. And then Tre Harris can be one of those guys, but he's also excels on the outside, better route runner than it would seem for his size, good contested catch player, can get deep, can stack players pretty well. Like I think he's going to be a really good target for Herbert. I like him a lot, and that's why he's up at 15 for me.
So 15 for me was Skattebo, and 15 for you. Wait, do we know you're 16?
No.
Oh.
It's Devin Neal.
There he is.
Yeah, so Devin Neal is not dead yet. He's probably the RB2 on the Saints, and maybe he's fighting Kendre Miller for a RB2 spot on this team, but I like those odds. But in all reality, I love this player. I love the tape. I'm going to take him in every chance I get when he's falling, similar to Harold Fannin. Yes, he went later than I wanted him to in the NFL draft, but that's kind of what the tea leaves were saying beforehand. So like it wasn't shocking. But we, get here and it's like, oh, what do we do with Devin Neal? Like I just got to trust my gut at this point, where I saw a really good player that, has a ton of upside, has a ton of college production, did it in a way that I thought was really appealing for an NFL team, and then lands behind Alvin Kamara, who, is, probably doesn't have a lot of time left in the black and gold just because of what their books look like and what this team looks like and the overhaul that they're probably going to have to go through pretty soon. People have been saying that Alvin Kamara is not going to be on this team for like 3 years, and he's still sticking around. So like maybe we're wrong about that, but like it just feels like he's getting closer to the actual like end of his time, and like his arc is maybe more of a journeyman running back, just because that's where players get at this point in the, he's getting into his low 30s. Like that's just kind of where we're at. Devin Neal has a chance to be kind of a 1-2 punch with Kamara. Maybe it's not this year, but like next year, see a little bit more of Devin Neal.
I mean, I get it. Like I understand. I knew you would still keep him up here because. So let me ask you this. He's number 16 for you.
Yep.
If you're on the clock at 2:04, are you taking Devin Neal?
Depends what my team looks like, but I'm not gonna. It depends how the feel of the league, I guess, is where I'm at. But I'm not gonna feel bad if I do take him.
So the reason I posed the question to you like that is because this kind of goes back to the conversation we just had about board dynamics and about how if you're much higher on a player than consensus or what you think your league mates are, then you can kind of get a little cheeky and just like let the player slide. I did the same thing with Cedric Tillman. Like 2 years ago, I had Tillman ranked at the top of the second round. I took him in a rookie draft in the middle of the third because it's like you wait to find that value spot where that the league's perceived values matching up with where he should be taken. But had I drafted straight off my board, he would have been taken much higher than that. So I posed the question to you just to understand kind of your thought process when you're in a dynasty rookie draft, which you've already now participated in 4 of them. How do you approach this when you're looking at your board versus waiting, what your league might be thinking about a player?
Yeah, it's definitely like I'll see where I took Devin Neal in these drafts because obviously like you end up with him when you have him this high. But I had him at 213 in a league, so not too far away. And then I took him at, let's see, Devin Neal. Just to like give you a sense of like I'm not just bullshitting around here. Like this is a guy I got him at 309 in a league. That's like so in some leagues you can just wait and see where he falls to you, and that's the reality of like playing with certain guys and knowing. And then I got him at 302 in my other one, where it's just like, yeah, I have him ranked at 16, but like it doesn't mean I'm slamming at like pick at 204 every single time, or I'm trading up into the second to get him. Like you just kind of got to understand. A lot of guys are looking at the Saints drafted this guy in what, the 5th or 6th round, like whatever. I don't really care. But if you can, be patient and wait to see him pass up a couple times and just earn a little more value with different guys, and then get them, in the 3rd round, late in the 3rd round, I think you're sitting pretty. But it's just like, will he be there at your next pick? I think you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to bring that up here, because I think this is a great example of something that we haven't really talked about much in the past, which is the fact that you can stack a board based off of how you see a class, but to draft straight off of that board isn't always best practice. Like right. You're losing value by just drafting guys like, oh, well, I want to take this guy here, so I'm just going to take him. Like, if he's as good as you think he is, then that might work out in the long run, but you can find value in a draft by moving back or waiting and still getting the guy you wanted at a later pick. So that's why I brought that up. When we're talking about rankings here, this is just our personal board, but it's not even necessarily indicative of we're going to go into a draft and just press the button with the player that's on the top of the spreadsheet, Yep. All right. With that said, number 15 for me was Skattebo.
Mine was Tre Harris.
And yours was Tre Harris. So then number 14 for me is Matthew Golden.
Me too.
Fuck yeah. That was
good. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to have him higher. But so Golden right now, I want to look at KTC on this one, because this one is interesting. He is at number 12 right now. So he is the, last pick of the 1st round, and according to KTC rankings right now. But I'm holding pretty firm with Golden, and it goes back to what we talked about last week. He did get a slight bump for me. He was at 16 pre-draft, now at 14. But in reality, like, it's about the same, because like Devin Neal was ahead of him for me in a vacuum. So I think this Packers spot there's a lot of upside with it. But there's also a lot of downside with it. Like it's a little bit high risk, high reward. Do you trust and believe that he can become the featured option in this offense? Do you believe that the draft capital, the talent, whatever you want to say about him, do you believe that equals him being the number 1 option for the Packers and for Jordan Love? Or do you look at a player that's just kind of fitting alongside of players like Jayden Reed, and for right now, at least, like Romeo Doubs? And, I don't know what's going to happen with Christian Watson long term, but, there's just some Wicks. Yeah, Wicks. I mean, there's so many names. There's so many names, and none of them are entirely inspiring. None of them are entirely like you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, no, that's the guy. Like, I think Golden fits in the same bucket. I think he is just a name that you can look at, that you can say, yeah, that's fun. Like, he could be the guy, but he doesn't stand out to me from the rest. So I can't take him in the 1st round.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a simple case of there's a lot of guys in this wide receiver room that are all similar talent-wise. Like, I think they're going to all get 4 or 5 targets a game, and none of them are going to be like a certified fantasy stud. And that's okay. But I'm not going to take Matthew Golden like in the first round of my dynasty draft because of that. I have him this high because I like the traits, I like the athleticism. I think if there's a wide receiver that's a real, a guy that could be the number one, like it's probably Jayden Reed, but Matthew Golden has that opportunity too. It's probably going to be between those two guys. It's like a 1A, 1B if the targets end up shaking out that way. But it just feels like it's hot hand type of offense where if, Wicks can catch the ball that game, maybe he gets 13 targets one day. And it's like, oh, man, well, Matthew Golden got 3 targets and 2 were incomplete flies. And it's like, all right, that sucks, but that's the world that we're going to live in. And so what's going to happen, I don't know, but I've seen a lot of Packers football. I've seen this Jordan Love era, and it feels like it's going to be, spread the sugar, keep everybody happy, do some spacing stuff on offense, and maybe Golden is the beneficiary, but I don't know if it's going to be to the point where he's getting, 8 to 10 targets a game and producing on a consistent level.
So number 13 for me is Jayden Higgins.
Same.
I had a feeling.
Yep.
Because I feel like a lot of what we just talked about with Golden, in a way, you could translate to Higgins, but not in the sense of he's just another name in the room, but in the sense of will he ever be, getting enough volume to justify, taking him higher than this. And I don't think either of us have ever been higher than this. I feel like this has always been where he was, at least, in the last few months, like Senior Bowl, Combine, and then it was sort of like, all right, like he's a top of the second round pick. But in this case, you're competing with a premier, top of the league sort of talent with Nico Collins in the room. You're automatically relegated to being the number 2 at best. So in that sense, I think there's certainly a capped upside here with Jayden Higgins. But at the same time, we can go back and literally play back what we said about Jaylin Noel, but now talk about a player that they took a round higher, and they took at the top of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of reason to believe that Higgins can be the guy that sort of fills the void that has been vacated now with the loss of Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell.
Yep, that's where we're at. Is the questions that we have are probably null and void because like there's so many targets to go around outside of like Nico Collins because of the vacancies that are left behind by Diggs and Tank Dell. And yeah, they have Christian Kirk. Yes, they have Jaylin Noel, but they obviously really like Jayden Higgins. And I think we're going to get kind of what we hope for with Jayden Higgins. We talked about a lot, like I'd like to see Jayden Higgins play big slot. And if Nico Collins is going to be their, number 1 guy playing outside most of the time, I think you're going to see Higgins in the slot a decent amount. Like it's probably not going to be a majority of the time because they have Christian Kirk, they have, Jaylin Noel who can play in the slot. But I think you'll see it every once in a while, and it'll be pretty fun. Talked about similar body types with Nico Collins and Jayden Higgins, and like that could lead to a little bit of a overlap in route tree participation, but I think you'll still see enough of Jayden Higgins like doing underneath stuff while Nico Collins runs like the big boy routes, and he can be kind of an outlet for CJ Stroud to kind of dump if coverage is leveraged towards Nico, and I think that'll happen more often than not. And then Higgins can get some free easy stuff. So I like the spot. This is the Egbuka spot that we were hoping for, but just a little bit later, and it works out pretty good.
Yep. All right. Let's get into the first round, baby. We finally made it. Number 12. I have Luther Burden.
Okay. I have him higher.
Okay. Like high enough that we should wait, or
I have him at number 7.
Okay. So this is an interesting conversation then, because you have chosen to like minimally drop him because of the spot and the capital.
He didn't move at all for me.
Oh, he was at 7 for you. Yep. Okay. So he was at 6 for me. I thought he was at 6 for you too, but he was at 6 for me. He's now at number 12. I think for me, it goes back to what I said last week, which is that now he represents an awesome value dart throw pick if you can get him at the end of the first round. Like, I think for me, if you're talking about a player that's probably going to get negatively impacted, and I'm seeing it in action on KTC, where Burden is number 13 now in the class. He's dropped 4 spots since the draft. I think now getting him in this range it just makes him so much more fun. There's a little bit less heartburn, where you're not quite as worried about the off the field personality and the antics potentially popping up. You're getting him here in a spot where you can really talk yourself into, okay, if he's boom bust, that's fine, because I'm taking him here at number 12 versus taking him at number 6. However, I can totally understand why you would want to stay true to the talent, because I still think it is immense.
Yeah, I keep him at 7. I can see him having a very wide range. I've seen him have a very wide range, personally, in the drafts that I've done, where he's gone pretty high. People sticking to what they felt, was his value as a college player, and maybe that changed a little bit as his junior season happened. But I still I don't hate the landing spot with Chicago. I think you have one of the best offensive minds at the helm. You have a talented young quarterback. You have a pretty strong wide receiver room, and that would be the only thing that maybe gives you pause. But Keenan Allen's not getting any younger. DJ Moore is a good player. Rome Odunze is a good player, but you can play with 3 wide receivers, and if Burden is a part of their plan going forward, and I think he needs a little bit of development in his route tree. So that's, I think, now you have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore to learn from, and that's pretty good. And Ben Johnson. So I think you just bet on the fact that, sure, you got to wait a couple weeks to see any real production, maybe a year to see the return you want on the number 7 overall pick. But I think it'll be worth it, because this player has a ton of upside with the athleticism, with the run after catch, and the route running flashes that you see. If that can become consistent, then I think you see a real dynamic wide receiver that can put together some crazy stat lines.
So number 12 for you.
Stay in Chicago, man. Colston Loveland.
Bang.
So I'm assuming you have him higher. Do you have him a ton higher?
I have him at number 8. So you and I are almost flip-flopping these two.
Yeah. So Loveland is, kind of same story, because it's the Chicago receiving room still. This was definitely a surprise on draft night with Loveland, because they have Cole Kmet there already. They already had some wide receivers set in place, I just mentioned, with the veterans that are already in the room. But they go and take Loveland number 10 overall, and it's damn, they must love this guy. Apparently, so the story came out that, and I don't know how true this is, this could be, Bears propaganda, but apparently there were people calling for every pick, and then Loveland went off the board, and people stopped calling to trade up. And it was that feels like something, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But Loveland, really good receiver, can absolutely work as their primary tight end, while Cole Kmet works more as their in-line tight end, and Loveland is their receiving tight end. So Ben Johnson can make this work, I believe.
Oh yeah, I believe very much. That's why I moved him up to number 8. He was my number 10 player pre-draft, but again, if we go back to last week talking about my ramblings and stumblings on pre-draft rankings about Colston Loveland, it's because I had him at number 8 for most of the day and opted to move him down to number 10 before the show that week, because I was a little bit, I'll say it, I was scared to have 2 tight ends in my top 8. It just didn't feel right. But here we are, where Colston Loveland now sits in the number 8 spot, but he is, spoiler, tight end 1 for me. But that maybe isn't a spoiler because I said it was going to be the case last week. So between the draft capital, between the landing spot, between, what I think about the player just from a talent perspective, I mean, I'm all in on Loveland. I do think, it'll be interesting to follow along this season to see, can he kind of hit the ground running a la Sam Laporta? Is that the sort of season we're going to get? I can see, if that's not the case, that there could be some very, negative reactions to that, given the fact that people are probably most of the time spending a top 10 pick on Loveland in rookie drafts. He's number 9 on KTC right now. So I know we don't like to be patient. We don't like to wait around, especially when we're taking guys in the top 8, 9 picks of a draft. But if it's not this year, the wait will be worth it with Loveland. And it could very well be this year.
Yep. And same with, I co-sign that with Burden as well, where both of these guys, like, maybe the rooms feel crowded, but that crowding goes away pretty quickly when you have really good players on rookie deals.
So number 11 for me, IDP 1, Abdul Carter.
Yes, sir. Number 11 for me also.
I mean, this is the highest he's been for me. He's been pretty consistently sitting at about number 13 for me. I bumped him over Burden. I kind of have those two in a sub tier. Mm-hmm. I tiered this thing out, and those two I literally put 3.5 because I was like, I don't feel like Burden doesn't belong beside like Higgins and Golden, but he's not really with this top group for me. And the same thing can be said with Abdul Carter, who I think is just an excellent IDP, defensive line, potential game-changing edge player. This is the kind of, IDP that you are very comfortable taking at the end of the first round. 2 years ago, that was Will Anderson that we were taking in this range of the draft. This year, it's going to be Abdul Carter.
That's right. Yep. This is the guy that you got to spend premium draft capital on if you want him. The guy that hopefully will be a plug and play DL for you just for the next, 6 years at least. Like, put it in the bank. You feel good. Freak athlete, great pass rusher, still learning how to play the position. Like, that's everything that you could want. All wrapped into one right here.
We will talk more about Abdul Carter next week. Like I said, we have a whole IDP episode coming next week. We'll talk a little bit more about the Giants situation at that point next week, because it is a little bit interesting. But for right now, we'll leave it there and jump.
He still doesn't have a number. He's been asking. He's on the phone with every single guy in the Giants Ring of Honor trying to get their number.
I really don't want to have this conversation, but man, I am just sitting on some TNT takes about the number stuff that's going on right now. Like, and this is your like realm. This is your area of expertise. And so I'm really curious what you think about this, but
just be number 11. That's what I'd say.
It seems that easy.
Yeah.
How about we just stop trying to like take the franchise legend numbers, especially the ones that are retired? How about we just have our own numbers and make our own paths?
Especially Lawrence Taylor, greatest edge of all time. Hey, leave that one retired.
Imagine being 21 years old and being like, hey, Lawrence Taylor, can I have your number, man?
And he's like, no. And then he's got to go and be like, yeah, Lawrence Taylor said no. And it's like, why'd you ask?
Oh, my God.
Number 10.
Yeah.
I have Emeka Egbuka at 10.
Okay. I have him at 9.
Okay. So Egbuka went to kind of an interesting spot. I think we were both a little bit surprised. Still, towards the bottom of the first round, late first round to the Buccaneers. It's like, man, this is kind of interesting, but because they took McMillan last year, who was pretty good when subbing in for Chris Godwin when his foot almost fell off. But now you have like Mike Evans, Godwin coming back, McMillan, who is good, and now you bring Egbuka into this room, and it's like, what are we looking at? But this is Dynasty, man. Like, while he might have 700 yards this year, and it's kind of like, I'm a little underwhelmed. I took this guy in the first round. Have some patience. Like, he will bear fruit. Just give him some time.
And that's really it. Like, this is going to be the weirdest pick maybe of the round because of that fact that you kind of understand, or at least you should understand, that this is not going to be an immediate return on investment type of a pick. But I think taking him here at 9 or 10 or KTC, he's at number 8. I think anybody taking him at this range of the draft, like, you're taking him because you believe he is the long-term answer for the Bucs, and that is an answer that's coming sooner than maybe we anticipated, like, because of the fact that Chris Godwin, we don't know what he's going to look like. Like, we can say all we want that, oh, he's coming back from the injury, like he'll be, it's Evans and Godwin, run it back. But man, we've seen these horrific injuries happen, and guys just do not come back the same way. I mean, it's so easy to sit here today and say that Chris Godwin will be Chris Godwin, but I'm not convinced of that. Right. And actually, I'm talking myself more and more into the idea that Egbuka is going to be a quicker option in this offense, a quicker, he's going to rise up the target ranks a little bit quicker than even I was expecting when his name was called on draft night, because I think Mike Evans obviously will continue to be the guy, but that, the timeline we're right about at the end of that, or you'd expect that we're right about at the end of that. Godwin, major question mark. And then McMillan is just, he's fine, but he's not a 19th overall pick, and he's not Emeka Egbuka. So I think Egbuka, while this is a long-term play, most likely, I do think the doorway is open for him to like show some of that flash this year already.
Yeah, I think you could absolutely see that. You think about the injury that Godwin had, like, that was nasty. That's the same type of thing that Dak Prescott had. And Dak hasn't like run since. So like, I know Godwin will be different because he's a receiver, not a quarterback, and he can't just like park in the backfield and be a pocket passer. But it's going to be hard, like, psychologically, to like cut off of that foot in an NFL game, to like be afraid to get hip drop tackled in an NFL game. Like, while he may be physically good to go next year, it's still like a whole psychological battle to play, 100% of the snaps and be as dominant as he was before he got that injury.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that my number 10 player is your number 9 player.
Let's find out.
Tyler Warren.
TreVeyon Henderson's my number 9.
Ooh, okay. Well, we'll talk about Henderson in a bit then. That's really interesting. And I have some thoughts about that, but for now, Tyler Warren, where did he end up?
Number 8, by the way.
Number 8?
Yeah.
So Warren and Egbuka for me at 9 and 10. Take them in any order. I mean, really, it's like if you need a tight end, take Warren. If you need a wide receiver, take Egbuka. Like because I think with Egbuka, it's when is the production going to come? And with Warren, the question is more of like the opportunity the opportunity is there, but is it gonna happen? So I think with a player of Warren's caliber and the sort of tight end talent that we both believe he is, I'm not going to get too hung up on the situation, even if it is very questionable in terms of both volume of targets and quality of targets. Those are two separate but very real concerns with the Colts offense in general. So, but at the same time, it's Tyler Warren, and if anybody can be a safe target, maybe it's not even a target. Maybe we're just getting him, carries. Maybe he's just doing different things to get the ball in his hand. They're doing different things to get the ball in his hands. Whatever it is, I'm not letting him fall out of the top 10. That's for sure.
If there's, I've said this kind of ironically about some players, but if there's ever been a player that I wanted to have the Taysom Hill role, it's Tyler Warren. Like, I want him to be running the ball. I want him to taking direct snaps, like whatever we got to do to get him the rock, because the future of this passing offense is in the air with Anthony Richardson's, historically low completion percentage last year. Daniel Jones being the other quarterback on that roster doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence in you if you're, somebody that holds Tyler Warren. So there's definitely a little bit of like concern about what exactly, will this look like in practice. But again, this is not only about this year. This is about a little bit of like a long-term outlook also, because this is the tight end position too, where things take time to develop. And I think Warren is the most NFL ready in terms of like body and skill set, where he's a really good rack player. He can do so many different things. He's cerebral, and he's also like physically imposing as a player. So he can, if all else fails, just like win off his physicality for his rookie year. So I'm just excited to see how he's deployed in the league. But I definitely wouldn't be like sprinting this card to the podium with as much excitement as some of the other players, just because of the situation.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about TreVeyon Henderson then, because you have him at number 9.
Yep.
And I have him at number 7.
Okay.
So take it away.
So TreVeyon Henderson went to the Patriots, which is a good spot. Absolutely. This is a spot that we were hoping a running back got taken in. And he went, pretty early. He didn't go first round like we were maybe projecting, but ended up going pretty soon on day 2. And then, so TreVeyon is going to be their starting running back. He's going to have a pretty prominent role in this offense. It's obviously like, I just don't know, like the carrying the load kind of thing. That's why he ends up being number 9, because I don't know if he can be like an every down back. He can be like 1A go for it, because he hasn't been and hasn't stayed healthy while doing that. He was exceptional last year when he split with Judkins. And before that, it was like he was great up until he got dinged up and like then missed time for the rest of the year. And then you say, well, he looked really good when he was healthy. And so I can just imagine the Patriots will end up splitting carries with him. And that's why he ends up dropping a little bit in the first round.
And that's totally fair. I mean, we've talked about him, for a long time now. But I think specifically this year, I've talked a lot about how I think he has to function as a 1B sort of a runner. Like, he has to be paired with somebody because of all of the things you just said. He's got a smaller frame. It's a little bit underrated. Yes, he runs with toughness. He's not afraid to, great pass blocker, excellent pass blocker. He will run through guys, but like, he's 202 pounds. He has a slight frame. And I think we've seen the injuries in his past. Injuries that almost derailed what was, a very promising start to his college career. He managed to get it back on the right track and put himself in this position to be a high second-round pick in the NFL draft. But I think when this is another one of those instances where it's certainly not as dramatic as some of the ones we were talking about in the second round. But when you talk about cost, TreVeyon Henderson is kind of the people's champ right now. I think a lot of people, when they look at, okay, Jeanty's off the board, Hampton's off the board, Tet's off the board, Travis Hunter, yeah. All right, I want TreVeyon. Like, they want explosive fireworks, breakaway runs, all the highlights that we got. And I'm not saying that you're wrong for prioritizing that. I mean, I've heard a friend of ours throughout the ceiling take of like a Jahmyr Gibbs, a smaller player with this very dynamic home run ability that's operating as in a committee sort of a backfield, but man, he makes it work because he's just that talented and he's that explosive and dynamic. I'm not saying that that's out of the question for Henderson, but I'm saying I don't want to bet on that happening at pick number 4, which is where he is on KTC right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Henderson a lot. I'm not trying to diminish the talent. You can go back through many months of us talking about this player. I'm a big fan of his game, but I have him at number 7. He's at the end of that second running back run because I have more concerns with him than I would have with other guys ahead of him, even if he's flashing a little bit more of that explosive, exciting skill set.
Yep, that's exactly right. I think you're going to see a lot of home runs from TreVeyon. I think you're going to see a lot of really sick stuff out of this Patriots offense with this revamp that they're going through. But I just feel like this is a testament to this running back class. We've been saying it the entire time. These other guys just have better opportunity, and I liked more on tape. So, like, that's just kind of where it is. Like, TreVeyon being my RB 6, is that true? My RB 5 makes it, like, seem like I'm low on TreVeyon, but really not. Like, I'm excited to see what TreVeyon's going to do. I just, like, I don't know if I want to take him number 5.
We barely had one running back going in the top 9 last year. Yeah. Now we have 5. Yep. So, all right. Where are we?
8 for me is Tyler Warren.
Okay. Number
7 for me is Luther Burden.
Okay. So 8 for me, Loveland, 7 for me, Henderson, which means we're on number 6.
Yep.
And that would be Quinshon Judkins.
There it is.
Hey. So, I mean, again, it's like, I feel like there's many sound bites from the past of like Judkins versus Henderson, because it's an easy one because they were playing in the same backfield. And you and I have been back and forth on this. Me specifically, I know I can speak for myself and say I've flip-flopped these two guys many times throughout the season. I ended with Judkins ahead of Henderson pre-draft, and I'm ending with Judkins ahead of Henderson post-draft, because not only did Quinshon go ahead of Henderson in the NFL draft, but he also went to a spot that is very exciting in terms of fantasy. Yes, the Browns are a weird team in general, a la, the quarterback room and all of the other things happening there with a roster that's kind of falling apart. But at the core, they want to run the ball. Kevin Stefanski wants to run the ball. Nick Chubb is gone. Jerome Ford is not, to me, is not a real threat to Quinshon Judkins getting touches. We talked about this with Dylan Sampson way earlier in the show, but this is the guy that I think comes in very quickly, secures a pretty sizable workload, and has the size and the talent and the athleticism to maintain that sort of, workhorse role in this Browns offense.
Judkins is sick, man. That's where I'm ending up.
That's all you need to say.
I just don't want to overthink this player, and I feel like we've gotten to a point where like he's almost a value as the lead back on the Browns, because of, go back, rewind, can hear what I have to say about the Browns passing game and their quarterbacks. We're running the damn ball in Cleveland. We're going to do what we've been doing. The only thing that's been successful is running the damn ball. And Judkins is going to be the primary beneficiary of that, because he's a dog, and he can play in multiple different ways. He has the skill set to do multiple different things. You've seen it in 3 years of tape. You've had almost 3 different players, it feels like, where year one, it was this elusive back that, could lower his shoulder when he needed to. Year two, you saw a little more of the power, but a little bit too much ad-libbing, so he got himself in trouble. Year three, it was go north and south and puts guys in the dirt. And so I think, if you can find a balance between those 3 guys, you can be a really good running back. But even if you end up being who you were in your junior year full time, that's a pretty damn good runner.
So I'm realizing that you and I stayed true. We followed the compass, and it led us to Kaleb Johnson being number 5.
Yeah, we did.
Oh man, I was nervous. I was nervous. I never wavered. I never, there's a voice in the back of your head that says you should maybe bump him down a little bit. But at the end of the day, I never really considered moving him down. How about you?
No, I didn't even think about it, honestly. I had him at 5. I had Judkins at 6. Everything after 6 was open to shifting, but Johnson landed in a really good spot. I think that's the key, where if he would have landed in a crowded backfield where it was kind of unclear how he was going to get a path to production, maybe he moves down a little bit. But he ends up in Pittsburgh and next to Jaylen Warren, who's a good complement to him. And maybe people say he's just a carbon copy of Najee Harris. I've heard that take before. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he's got more athleticism than Najee had. I think he's just a better runner, has better vision than Najee had. So I am really excited. Stays in the black and yellow. That's awesome. I just everything kind of lined up where it was he's going later than I want. I hope he ends up in one of these spots that needs running back, the Bears, who we talked about, or the Giants, who we talked about, and ends up in Pittsburgh, who we also wanted to take running back. And it's man, that's a good compliment to Jaylen Warren.
Yeah, just the fact that he went a full round later than the guys we just talked about with Judkins and Henderson, I think that's where the conversation is being had with where Kaleb Johnson is currently sitting in rookie drafts. I am, as we talked about earlier, I am surprised to see that he is holding at pick 7 on KTC right now, because I would have expected a pretty significant reaction from the general Dynasty community based off of the fact that he went later than those guys. He went later than RJ Harvey in the NFL draft. I mean, there is a lot of reason why you'd expect this player to fall just based off of the overall community's reaction to the NFL draft. However, like you said, this is a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
So why would I move him down? I still believe he is a more talented runner than the guys that we just talked about. That has always been the case. To go back to running back 2.0 is very much the case. And so if he's going to have an opportunity to potentially start immediately, then I have no concerns about it. I expect him to come out and look like the guy that I've always thought that he was. And then if that's the case, I'm going to take him at number 5.
Amen.
All right. The top 4.
How are we looking?
We are no strangers to these players, but there is yet a lingering question potentially about 1 and 2 on my end. We know where you sit, but before we get there, number 4 for you,
it's Travis Hunter.
Really?
That's still where I am.
Okay.
Okay. So Travis Hunter, obviously we have, a lot of people have been wheels up with Travis Hunter. We got the sleeper message about what's going to happen with his eligibility. We've heard that he's going to play both ways in Jacksonville, primarily receiver, it sounds like. We had the introductory press conference, which was electric. All that is awesome. I am still very nervous about this player. I'm still very nervous about like what the hell is actually going to happen once like the regular season starts, because all this talk is great and like all of it is, but it's all talk at the end of the day. It's all GM speak. It's all Travis Hunter. It's the honeymoon phase of these players. Like, I'm going to have Travis Hunter do whatever he wants. We just took him number 2 overall. I just traded up for him. This is my first draft pick ever. Like, this is, I'm going to tell him what he wants to hear. I'm going to tell the fans what they want to hear. I'm going to tell everybody what they want to hear. But once we get to it, he's playing, 90% of snaps at wide receiver, and he's subbing in every once in a while as DB. And what does that look like as a wide receiver 2 on the Jags, where this offense is kind of turning over? I don't really know. And like, I still would rather take these 3 other guys that we're going to talk about, because I'm pretty certain in what their roles are going to look like.
All right. Drum roll.
Here we go.
Travis Hunter is my number 2 player.
There it is.
Probably,
development.
Yeah, probably no surprise.
Yeah.
But there was this lingering, thought over the last couple weeks of like, what if he is number 1? And I think I've finally quieted those thoughts, and I've finally like come to the conclusion that there is a world where Travis Hunter in 3 years is, oh yeah, he's easily the best player from this class. Like, that's a world that exists.
Yeah.
But I think that world exists if he is always a wide receiver DB on your fantasy platform of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not saying he can't develop into like a wide receiver that is so talented and so, the Jags offense is so prolific at this point that he is able to like earn a spot, a high dynasty asset rank as just a wide receiver. But I think the only way that we look back on this class where Travis Hunter was the number 1 player is if he is a starting wide receiver in the NFL, a high-end starting wide receiver in the NFL that is playing in your DB slot.
Right.
And that is a question that we cannot answer and will not be able to answer, because he could lose DB eligibility at any point.
Yeah.
Like 2026 could roll around and they just like didn't play him that much at DB this last year, and Sleeper's like, we're going to take it away now.
Yep.
So I don't want to live in a world where I'm like living and dying on what a player is eligible to play. I'm just going to take the best players. Sure. Now, that being said, I do have him at number 2 because I think the risk of losing that eligibility is not like, it doesn't overshadow the reward of starting a wide receiver at DB for an extended period of time.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, in a league of mine, we have kick return yards, and someone's just started Quinshon Nixon he's a corner, and started him in their DB spot, got like 20 points a game from him, because it was like, he would return every kick and get it to the 20-yard line. It's like 2 points for every return. The other team scores enough, you're going to get enough returns. You end up popping like a 35-yarder and then get a couple tackles and a PBU, and you're all of a sudden at 20 points. And that's what you're getting with Travis Hunter, except he's a wide receiver 2 and like could have, 100 yards, 10 catches, and a touchdown on top of, whatever cherry on top defense he plays. So I 100% understand if you want to take him number 1 overall. If you're like, I think he's going to break the sport, if you think he's going to break the IDP platform, go ahead and take him number 1. Like, absolutely will not blame you. I just have my reservations about like what this player looks like, what the role looks like, and what the volume's going to look like.
Yeah, no, that's it. Like, I think if you have conviction about him breaking the game, then absolutely, like, there's very much an argument to take him first. Like if you truly believe he is going to be a DB eligible wide receiver for his career, then sure. But that's just a risk that you can't take, in my opinion, with the player that we have at number 1.
Right.
All right. So that's your number 4, my number 2, and your number 3 is my number 4.
Tetairoa McMillan.
Yes.
Right. So Tetairoa McMillan went really high. We were kind of worried about a McMillan slide in the draft. We were talking about him in the 20s. Like the Packers were getting mocked him, and we're like, that's not going to happen. But there's that thought in the back of your head when enough mock drafts say it that you're like, oh, maybe that is a real thing. But he ends up going, I think it was like 8 to the Panthers, 8 or 9, something like that.
8. Yep.
And I was like, okay, yeah, you're going to spend this on a receiver you mean business in your offense, because the Panthers offense kind of looked like the worst of all time early last season. And then it was like this Andy Dalton, Bryce Young push and pull. We thought Bryce Young was a complete bust. And then, the last 5 or so games of the season, Bryce Young looked pretty good, looked way more comfortable standing behind his O-line, looked like he's getting the ball out on time, on target. And that was with like Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, Adam Thielen, like a ragtag group of guys. You give him Tetairoa McMillan where he has like a dynamic threat that can do so many different things, that can, be a contested catch guy, but can also be a yards after the catch guy, can separate pretty well for his size. I think like you give him that as a security blanket, he can absolutely be a really high volume player in an offense that's going to be probably trailing a lot, because like this team is still not very talented top to bottom. So they're probably going to be throwing the ball a lot. And I think Tetairoa McMillan is going to be a huge benefactor of that.
Yeah, McMillan has been my number 2 player for quite a long time at this point, and he finally has been overtaken and is my number 3 player in my final rankings. But that's not to say that anything that happened with him in the NFL draft is a bad thing. I think the only thing that I'd say is that there is question about, can we rely on Bryce Young to be the guy that he showed us that he had the potential to be based off of how he played at the end of last season. We still don't know if that's the real Bryce Young. So if the old one comes back, then like suddenly this offense gets kind of weird again.
Then we get a quarterback in 2026, baby.
And then so like that's why it's whatever you think about Bryce Young, whatever you think about the Panthers, I don't really care. Like to me, it's just if there's a tiebreaker to be had here, and that's kind of where I was with number 2 and number 3. It's all right. Maybe there's going to be some weirdness that leads to McMillan having an underwhelming rookie season. But long term, I love this spot. This was our perfect match. He has all of the ability and the opportunity to be the number 1 option for them, the number 1 wide receiver. I know at points in the process we've talked about, maybe he's a high-end number 2, and maybe that's a good thing. I have always thought that he can be a number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, and I think this is the spot where he can really seize hold of that. So,
yep, absolutely. I think he's going to have like 190 targets.
Just eat him. Who cares?
So are we really going to throw the ball to? Yeah, never mind. I don't want to disrespect anybody, but we live in a world where Tetairoa McMillan is far and away the best receiver on this roster, and he's a quarterback-friendly target. So, why not throw him the ball as often as possible?
Right. All right. So our collective, or no, that's not even true. I have Travis Hunter at number 2. Keep forgetting that I've swung this way with the news, but I have Hampton at number 3.
Yep.
Omarion
number
Hampton.
2.
So briefly, just to say, before I let you go on this. The reason McMillan gets the bump down, obviously, Hampton is just like, this is perfect. Like, everything about this was perfect for him. I love Hampton. I love Omarion Hampton. You can go back to summer scouting almost a full year ago. This was my RB1 in the summer. I don't know that he can hit the ground running and be a no doubt successful running back, from week 1 of his rookie season. But he will have the opportunity to be that player. Right. Like Najee Harris, I'm sorry, is not really blocking, what I would imagine would be early Hampton snaps in his rookie season. So we're going to get to see what he has right away. And I think long term, no reason to doubt him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this set up to be perfect. I had a second where I was like, oh, I don't love that Najee's here. But then it's okay, who cares? Najee is Najee. He's a fine running back that is gonna get some touches to spell Omarion Hampton. That just feels like where we're at. Hampton is so dynamic. He can absolutely be a bell cow. Harbaugh's gonna love him. He's built like a brick shit house. He has incredible athleticism. We're wheels up with Omarion.
And that leaves one.
Yeah, it does.
So we talked about this briefly last week, of course, but now we know that Ashton Jeanty will be a Las Vegas Raider. He went number 6 overall in the NFL draft. He will get an obscene amount of carries this year. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that he cannot take those carries and become one of the best running backs in the NFL from his first season onward. So, I mean, what's left to say, but what is the price of this pick?
I don't know if there is a price of this pick. So I had 101 in a league. I had 101 and 102. And someone asked her, what do you want for 101? I was like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question because I don't want to trade this pick. This feels like I won the lottery with this. It's borderline generational type of running back. The numbers that he put together in college, the performances that he put together in college, the tape that he has is one of one type of stuff. And they're like, yeah, I'll give you this, and this. And it's yeah, but I think I just I can have Ashton Jeanty and I'm good. So unless you're getting a trade package that is a proven player plus picks and you know for sure what you're getting back, I think you almost feel safe taking Jeanty, and saying that it feels a little scary.
According to KTC, there are only 6 players in the game of Dynasty that are more valuable than Ashton Jeanty is today. And those 6 players are Brock Bowers, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. So you really, if you're at the 101, you have to ask yourself, what does Bijan Robinson cost? What does CD Lamb cost? Because he's the one behind Jeanty right now. So, I mean, and that's really what it is. This is a first overall pick, but this is a top Dynasty running back. Really, it's not really a pick. It's more of this is the Dynasty RB3 right now, potentially. So I think the only to answer my own question, the only way I would even consider moving this pick is if I was literally on a roster, I had a roster that was Jeanty was going to be my Lamborghini next to the trailer park. like I have no other asset
Yeah.
worth. That's the only time that I'm moving this pick. So
Yep.
other than that, we will just kick back and watch this saga unfold with Jeanty and the Raiders, the perfect match that did in fact come. Well, it wasn't our perfect match, but it was a perfect match for Jeanty in the end. And we will get to watch this all unfold, and we will talk about it in the fall as it is unfolding. So
yeah, we are one football season away from football season. That's how much time which, you know, it always feels like it flies by. Hopefully hopefully it feels like it flies by.
I mean, we're into rookie mini camps already. All of a sudden we'll be into OTAs, and
I saw Matthew Golden jogging routes. I was like, oh yeah.
Put it in my veins.
How long, I don't want to go on this side tangent. He's number 22. Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
How long until he gets number 2 from Malik Willis? Because like Malik Willis seems like a type of guy that's like, I don't care what my number is.
Yeah, right.
So
I mean,
like,
if it's not before week 1 of this year, like somebody did something wrong.
Right.
That's really it. But all right. Well, we will have plenty of opportunities to talk about numbers. We got a little bit into it. I didn't uncork all of my takes about numbers yet, so we'll get to that at some point. But I think for today, that is just about enough Dynasty rookie content. But this is the granddaddy of them all. This is final post-draft rankings. This is the last time that we will talk about this class in its entirety. This is the last time, honestly, like we will talk about Ashton Jeanty, Tetairoa McMillan, Travis Hunter. Those well, maybe a little bit of Travis Hunter next week potentially. But besides the point, we are moving on. We are talking about IDPs, then we're going to talk about sleepers, and then we are going to wind this thing down one final time before 2026. There are 3 episodes left in the 2025 cycle. So
unreal.
It's crazy that we've made it here, but it's been a hell of a year, and we're not quite done yet. But man, I'm looking forward to getting into some rookie drafts and starting to actually take these players because I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, it feels pretty good, especially when you like are loaded up on picks and you get to like take a bunch of these guys. It's like, man, it's cool to have them on the roster.
Well, if you stuck around for the entirety of this almanac that we are calling post-draft rankings, we appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube and leaving your spicy comments down and swearing at us, if you stuck around through the whole thing, be sure to at least, hit subscribe and like to make up for that. We appreciate it, of course. And if you're on the pod feed, like, rate, review, subscribe, share, and follow all of the podcasty things, because we very much appreciate that as well.
If you don't leave 5 stars on this one,
what do we got to do?
What are we doing?
All right. Well, we will be back to talk about IDPs next week. But thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week. And we'll see you next week.